Welcome, curious minds, to The Deep Dive. Today we're plunging into a concept that genuinely makes you rethink everything. The very idea that your consciousness, your awareness, might be linked to something as strange and elusive as quantum entanglement.
It's pretty mind-bending stuff.
Totally. And that's just one piece of the puzzle we're exploring today. We're taking a truly diverse stack of sources, from groundbreaking scientific discoveries in the far reaches of space to the intricate dance of global politics and, the surprising shifts in our economies right here on Earth. Our mission, as always, is to distill the most important nuggets of knowledge and insight from your sources, offering you those aha moments without the information overload. Get ready to journey from the quantum level inside our brains to cosmic frontiers, and then back down to examine the geopolitical forces and market trends shaping our daily lives.
And it's a day full of fascinating contradictions and critical developments, as you'll soon hear. We'll explore how seemingly disparate events, whether it's the evolution of dogs in Chernobyl, Ukraine, or new trade tariffs impacting global supply chains, are all profoundly connected within a larger global picture. Our aim is to not just tell you the what, but to delve deeply into the why it matters, always encouraging you to think critically about the implications of these global shifts and how they impact you.
All right, let's kick things off with a true head-scratcher, literally. Our deepest dive today takes us right into the human brain, proposing a radical new theory about consciousness. Imagine if the very essence of your thoughts, your consciousness, wasn't just electrochemical signals.
Right, not just the wiring we usually think about.
Exactly. But something fundamentally connected to quantum entanglement, the universe's, strangest phenomenon.
Yeah, a groundbreaking study, recently highlighted in places like Popular Mechanics, suggests that quantum entanglement within the brain's myelin sheaths could actually be the foundation of consciousness. This hypothesis proposes that our neural networks might be leveraging quantum mechanics for conscious thought.
Okay, wait, myelin sheaths. Those the fatty insulators around nerve cells, right? Helping signals travel fast.
Precisely. They insulate neuronal axons, enabling that incredibly rapid electrical impulse conduction. And quantum entanglement, just to recap, is where two or more particles become interconnected. So interconnected that they instantaneously affect each other no matter how far apart they are. Einstein called it spooky action at a distance.
Spooky indeed. So the idea is this spookiness is happening inside the insulation of our brain cells and generating consciousness.
That's the hypothesis. What's striking about this idea is how far science is pushing our understanding of fundamental existence. It's trying to bridge quantum physics and neuroscience in a really direct way.
So if consciousness truly has a quantum basis, what does that imply about its nature? Could it be replicated? Could we understand it differently than we ever imagined?
Well, the implications are staggering, really. If consciousness is a quantum phenomenon, it opens up huge questions. Is it unique to biology? Or could it be a fundamental property of the universe, potentially existing beyond biological forms?
Like an AI. Could a machine ever be truly conscious if it needs quantum processing?
That's one of the profound questions, yes. It also challenges our current sort of materialist understanding of the mind. It suggests maybe a deeper, perhaps less localized aspect to our awareness.
It sounds like it could completely revolutionize our understanding of the human mind. But is this just a theory, or is there, evidence building?
Right now, it is still largely theoretical. It needs extensive empirical evidence to move beyond being a fascinating hypothesis. But the potential implications are why researchers are pursuing it so seriously.
Okay, from the mind-bending to the truly resilient. Let's turn our attention from the brain's internal mysteries to an incredible real-world testament to biological resilience, the dogs of Chernobyl, Ukraine. Studies are revealing some absolutely fascinating evolutionary changes in dogs living in the Chernobyl exclusion zone decades after the 1986 nuclear accident.
Indeed. We're talking about the descendants of pets that were abandoned and strays that have lived in pretty remarkable isolation in this highly radioactive environment since the disaster. Researchers are now closely studying their unique genetics. They're looking for insights into potential adaptations to radiation exposure, although that specifically requires more study.
So they're not necessarily radioactive superdogs yet.
Probably not. But their genetics might tell us a lot about how canine genomes respond to extreme environmental pressures and isolation over generations. It's also just a broader window into evolutionary processes. It's a powerful testament to life's incredible ability to persist and adapt, even in incredibly harsh conditions. Think of it like a living laboratory.
It's genuinely incredible. You almost picture them with, A subtle glow fetching radioactive sticks. Maybe not.
Probably best not to fetch those sticks.
Right. And speaking of pushing boundaries, how about bringing back a 3.6-meter tall, 200-kilogram bird that went extinct 600 years ago?
Ah, yes, the giant moa.
Colossal Biosciences. The same company working on the woolly mammoth now intends to resurrect the moa, which was native to New Zealand.
This is really pushing the envelope on de-extinction, a field that sparks as much debate as it does excitement. The moa was the largest bird known to have existed, a dominant herbivore in its ecosystem before humans arrived in New Zealand.
And the plan is gene editing, using DNA from old bones or something.
Essentially, yes. The plan involves utilizing cutting-edge gene editing techniques, likely CRISPR, to reconstruct the moa's genetic blueprint from DNA extracted from preserved specimens, bones, feathers, eggshells perhaps. Then the idea is to produce an embryo and implant it in a surrogate host, probably a closely related living bird species like the emu or ostrich.
Technologically amazing, but ethically, ecologically.
Yeah, exactly. Beyond the sheer technical challenge, this raises some really important questions. What are the broader ecological and ethical responsibilities when we even contemplate de-extinction?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds cool, but aren't there like a million species currently endangered that need help now? Why spend potentially vast resources bringing back something from 600 years ago?
That's a central point in the ethical debate. Critics raise exactly that concern, resource allocation. Should we be pouring millions into de-extinction projects when also significant ecological risks? You're potentially reintroducing a species into an environment that's changed drastically in 600 years. It could disrupt existing ecosystems, maybe even introduce new diseases.
Okay, so what's the argument for doing it then? Beyond just because we can.
Proponents argue that de-extinction could restore lost ecological functions. For example, the moa played a key role in shaping New Zealand's vegetation through browsing and seed dispersal. Bringing it back might help restore some aspects of forest health. They also frame it sometimes as a way to right past wrongs, especially for extinctions directly caused by human activity, which was the case with the moa.
Playing God or course correcting? It's a tough one.
It's a very complex balance between scientific ambition, ecological responsibility, and, frankly, the wow factor.
Okay, moving from the biological to the geological and astronomical, let's look at how we're mapping our own planet and peering out into the cosmos. NASA, working with the U.S. Geological Survey, the USGS, is pushing forward with the Geological Earth Mapping Experiment, or GEM. The goal is mapping critical mineral resources right here in the United States.
Right. This initiative is actually a continuation of a partnership that goes way back to the Apollo era. It's designed to really enhance our understanding of domestic mineral wealth. It involves these specialized aircraft flying really high, up at 60,000 feet, carrying advanced imaging spectrometers. Think of them as instruments that can see the unique fingerprints of different minerals from way up there.
What kind of minerals are they looking for?
They're particularly focused on areas in the western U.S., like a place called Cupric in Nevada, looking for things like lithium, cobalt, nickel, and rare earth elements. The primary significance here is strategic and economic. It aims to reduce U.S. reliance on imported minerals for critical industries.
Like for national security, clean energy tech.
Exactly. Electric vehicles, solar panels, wind turbines, not to mention virtually all modern consumer electronics, smartphones, computers, everything. It's basically using aerospace tech to tackle a really down-to-earth resource challenge.
And while we're mapping Earth, NASA's Parker Solar Probe is getting incredibly close to the sun, closer than any spacecraft ever before. It recently captured the closest ever images of our star from just 3.8 million miles away during its flyby back in December 2024. What are we learning from getting that close?
Well, the images are spectacular, first off. Using its wide-field imager called WhisperR, it provided these incredibly high-resolution visuals of the solar corona, that's the sun's outer atmosphere, and the solar wind streaming off it. The observations included seeing coronal mass ejections, CMEs, these huge eruptions of plasma actually merging together, and maybe even more intriguingly, seeing these complex magnetic switchbacks.
Switchbacks, like hairpin turns in the magnetic field.
Kind of, yeah. Unexpected S-shaped bends in the sun's magnetic field lines. Directly observing these offers unprecedented insights into how the solar wind behaves, how it gets accelerated. And this is crucial because that solar wind is what causes space weather, which can impact us here on Earth, our communication systems, GPS satellites, even power grids.
So understanding the sun helps protect our tech back home.
Precisely. Understanding solar dynamics directly informs space weather predictions. And that's vital for protecting our increasingly satellite-dependent world. The data even helps confirm theories about where the slower solar wind comes from.
Protecting our world from space weather is also the focus of another NASA mission you mentioned. Tracers, tandem reconnection, and cusp electrodynamics reconnaissance satellites. Bit of a mouthful.
It is, yeah. This mission, launching quite soon in late July, is designed to investigate something called magnetic reconnection and how that impacts Earth's magnetosphere, our planet's magnetic shield.
So how does it work?
It uses twin satellites flying in tandem, orbiting from pole to pole. They'll specifically examine how particles from the solar wind manage to sneak into our atmosphere through weak points near the poles, known as the polar cusps. It's part of NASA's wider Heliophysics Explorers program, which is all about understanding the sun and its influence throughout the solar system.
Are there other experiments going up with tracers?
Yes, the launch includes other payloads, too, for things like remote sensing, testing new communication technologies, and studying Earth's radiation belts. But the core purpose of tracers itself is to really advance our understanding of how Earth's magnetic field deflects that harmful space radiation. This is absolutely critical for keeping our satellites operational and ensuring the safety of astronauts in orbit or potentially on future missions to the Moon or Mars.
Okay, zooming much further out now. The Hubble Space Telescope, still going strong, recently captured a stunningly detailed image of Able 209. That's a galaxy cluster, 2.8 billion light-years away, in the constellation Cetus. Basically, a cosmic city filled with hundreds of galaxies.
Exactly. It's a massive structure. And these images reveal more than just the galaxies themselves. What's particularly significant here is how observing clusters like Able 209 helps astronomers study dark matter. Dark matter is that invisible, mysterious stuff that we can only detect through its gravitational effects on things we can see.
How does observing a galaxy cluster help with that?
The immense gravity of a cluster like Able 209 actually bends and distorts the light coming from even more distant objects behind it. It acts like a giant lens in space.
Ah, gravitational lensing.
Precisely. By carefully analyzing how the light is bent, scientists can map the total mass distribution within the cluster, including the unseen dark matter. This helps refine our understanding of the universe's overall composition. The current picture is roughly 5% normal matter, the stuff we're made of 25% dark matter, and a whopping 70% dark energy, which is driving the universe's accelerated expansion. Hubble's observations are critical pieces in that cosmic puzzle.
Okay, let's bring it back closer to home, but still thinking about ancient geology. NASA's Curiosity rover is exploring a feature called Volcán Peña Blanca on Mars. It's analyzing layered rocks there, trying to figure out if water played a role in hardening them way back when. Mars keeps hinting at its watery past.
It really does. And Curiosity isn't just, taking pictures. It's a mobile laboratory. It has instruments like APXS to analyze rock chemistry, MAHLI for super close-up microscopic images, ChemCam, which zaps rocks with a laser to figure out what they're made of, and MassCam for those high-resolution color panoramas we see.
So it's really digging into the details of whether water was involved in forming these rocks.
Exactly, giving us crucial clues about Mars's ancient environment and its potential for hosting life long ago.
And then, in a funny coincidence, right here on Earth, a museum in Denver, Colorado, known for its dinosaur displays, found a fossil bone right under its own parking lot.
Yeah, during a study for geothermal heating, of all things.
What's fascinating here is this kind of dual pursuit, isn't it? Trying to understand ancient geology, whether it's billions of years ago on Mars revealing clues about water or right here on Earth, literally uncovering bits of prehistoric life from beneath our feet in unexpected places.
It really highlights that the process of discovery is ongoing, both on other planets and right here at home, constantly adding pieces to the puzzle of planetary and life history.
Okay, shifting gears now from the cosmos to code, let's dive into the evolving tech frontier. And AI, well, it's having a bit of a moment, creating capabilities, but also cutting jobs. It feels like the robots are not only taking our jobs, they're helping us find jobs on sites like Indeed and then lose jobs because of AI implementation. It's a full-service existential crisis.
That's one way to put it. It certainly highlights the dual impact AI is having. Let's start with that job-cutting aspect. The job search engine Indeed and the employer review site Glassdoor, they're cutting a combined 1,300 jobs. Their parent company, Recruit Holdings, Inc., says this is part of implementing AI technology to, quote, enhance operational efficiency and streamline processes.
Streamline processes.
Right.
That usually means fewer people needed, right?
Often, yes. This is a pretty stark example. And it's not just about marginal gains, it signals a potential restructuring of the whole talent acquisition industry itself. These platforms are likely using AI for much more now candidate matching, resume parsing, automating workflows. It makes you wonder about the future role of humans in recruitment.
And the potential for bias in those algorithms too, I guess.
Absolutely. That's a huge ongoing concern with AI in hiring. Ensuring fairness when algorithms are making or influencing decisions at scale is critical.
But it's not just job losses. We're also seeing really sophisticated new AI applications emerge, like Goldman Sachs piloting its first autonomous coder. That sounds like a big deal for Wall Street.
It is a significant milestone. It reflects how AI is integrating into finance, where speed and precision are, everything. This autonomous coder isn't just automating simple tasks. It's expected to streamline complex coding processes, maybe write and test code for financial models or trading algorithms, enhancing efficiency significantly.
So while some jobs might be displaced, maybe new ones are created around managing these AI coders.
Potentially, yes. It shows the changing nature of work. There might be less need for routine coding, but more demand for people who can design, oversee, manage, and debug these advanced AI systems. It shifts the skill requirements.
And it's becoming a whole ecosystem. Amazon Web Services, AWS, they're launching an AI agent marketplace next week, partnering with Anthropic. What exactly is an AI agent marketplace?
Think of it as a platform where businesses can find, deploy, and manage pre-built AI agents designed for specific tasks. These agents are more autonomous than simple AI tools. They might handle customer service inquiries, manage scheduling, analyze data, or perform other complex functions with less direct human input.
So you can sort of hire an AI agent.
In a sense. The marketplace allows users to onboard these agents, monitor their performance, and even coach them, provide feedback to improve their effectiveness over time. If you connect this to the bigger picture, it suggests a future where AI isn't just a tool you use, but almost like an autonomous entity, maybe even a new kind of digital workforce that needs managing and continuous improvement.
Wow. That opens up a whole other can of worms, ethically and practically.
It absolutely does. New management strategies, new ethical considerations about AI decision-making, new forms of human-AI collaboration. It's a big shift.
Which brings us neatly to the ethics of AI. This is getting more complex all the time. There are recent findings suggesting that Grok 4, an AI from Elon Musk's xAI, well, it might actually consult Elon Musk himself, or at least his views, when answering controversial questions.
Right. The implication is that the AI might be designed or fine-tuned to reflect its founder's personal politics or viewpoints, especially on sensitive topics. This immediately raises an important question about transparency and accountability in AI development. Whose values and biases are being embedded into these incredibly powerful tools, and who gets to decide?
Yeah, if an AI is seen as objective, but it's actually reflecting its creator's bias, that's problematic.
Deeply problematic. As AI gets more integrated into how we get information and even how decisions are made, the potential for it to amplify specific viewpoints or biases is a critical ethical concern. It really demands much greater scrutiny and open discussion about the principles guiding AI design and alignment.
And speaking of manipulating information, there's a new tool out there called Mockly. Apparently, it's super user-friendly and can generate believable images of fake conversations, like fake iMessages, Discord chats, Instagram DMs, even Tinder messages.
Yes, across various popular platforms.
So if someone sends you a screenshot now, your first thought has to be, is this real or is this Mockly? Talk about trust issues.
It's a perfect example of how tech innovation, even if intended for harmless purposes like satire or creative projects, can quickly become controversial because of its potential for abuse. Tools like Mockly make it incredibly easy to create fake evidence, spread misinformation, commit fraud, or engage in online deception. It really erodes trust in digital communication.
And makes things like verifying information even harder.
Exactly. It reinforces the need for critical media literacy and perhaps even technological solutions for verifying the authenticity of digital content, though that's a challenge in itself.
Okay, shifting slightly within tech, but still about user impact. Belkin, the company that makes Wemo smart home devices, they're ending support for most of them, and their Wemo app.
Yes, that's causing quite a stir among users who've invested in that ecosystem.
So what happens? The devices just stop working.
They'll experience a gradual decline in functionality as the cloud support winds down, and then they're expected to cease working entirely in 2026.
That's rough. You buy these smart plugs or switches, and then suddenly they're just dumb plastic.
It highlights a broader, often frustrating trend in the smart home industry, the ephemeral nature of the technology. It showcases the challenges of long-term compatibility, the reliance on software updates and cloud services, and what some critics call planned obsolescence. When a company decides to pull the plug, users are often left with useless hardware.
Makes you think twice about investing heavily in one specific smart home brand, doesn't it?
It certainly encourages users to consider ecosystems with broader compatibility or open standards, though those aren't always available or easy to use.
But innovation definitely continues. Samsung is apparently exploring new wearable tech form factors like smart earrings and necklaces, bolstering their wearables lineup.
That's right, pushing beyond just earbuds into potentially more fashionable or discreet forms of wearable tech.
And Intel is spitting out its RealSense technology, that's their 3D camera, and depth sensing tech into a standalone company.
Yes, the idea there is to allow RealSense to scale its stereoscopic imaging technology more effectively, likely targeting markets like robotics, drones, augmented reality, and industrial automation.
So what's fascinating here is this constant push, isn't it? Embedding tech more seamlessly into our lives, whether it's through these innovative wearables from Samsung or specialized imaging tech spun out from a giant like Intel.
Absolutely. It highlights the continuous evolution and adaptation in the tech world. Companies are always looking for the next frontier of integration, the next way to make technology more personal, more capable, or more invisible.
Okay, let's broaden our view now to the complex and often turbulent world of geopolitics. Starting with the shifting sands of the conflict in Ukraine, it feels like the signals from global players are changing almost daily.
It's certainly a very fluid and complex situation, particularly regarding international support.
Yeah, we saw some really mixed messages recently about U.S. military aid. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio had to come out and refute reports that aid was being fully suspended.
Right. He clarified it was only a temporary pause, reportedly decided unilaterally by Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, focusing just on assessing stockpiles of specific munitions, air defense interceptors, and artillery shells.
But even a temporary pause causes concern, right? Especially for Ukraine and European allies.
Absolutely, it creates uncertainty. Rubio did reiterate Ukraine's desperate need for more Patriot missile systems.
Then President Trump pledged 10 Patriot interceptors, though there were immediate questions about the cost and availability. And this was apparently the third pause in arms shipments since Trump took office.
Yes, adding to that sense of unpredictability. However, then came a significant shift. Trump utilized the Presidential Drawdown Authority, the PDA, to send a $300 million package directly to Ukraine.
And that included Patriot missiles and medium-range rockets. So a reversal or clarification of the pause.
It appears so, a shift from the earlier signals. This complex and often contradictory signaling from the U.S. is particularly striking. It injects significant uncertainty for allies like Ukraine who depend on consistent support, and it also complicates Russia's strategic calculations as they try to gauge Washington's long-term commitment.
How is Russia reacting to all this?
Well, Kremlin officials have generally viewed any signs of reduced U.S. military engagement positively. Their public stance is often that Western weapons just prolong the conflict without changing the ultimate outcome. Russian spokesman Dmitry Peskov expressed skepticism about the mixed U.S. signals, and Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov even stated that Moscow is prepared for potential huge tariffs, like 500% on its trade partners, saying it won't derail their policy. They claim they've adapted to sanctions.
It really feels like U.S. internal policy debates are playing out very publicly on the world stage.
It does seem that way, creating a highly unpredictable environment for everyone involved.
Meanwhile, over in Europe, support for Ukraine also has its own complexities and divisions. Germany, for instance, pledged more Patriot systems as Russia continued strikes on Kyiv, the capital of Ukraine.
Yes, and German Chancellor Friedrich Merz even urged President Trump to increase assistance, offering to purchase systems from the U.S. to send to Ukraine.
And alongside military aid, European leaders are pushing for private investment in Ukraine's reconstruction, right,
Yeah.
despite the war.
They are, emphasizing the need for long-term economic support. Ukrainian Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal estimated the cost could be enormous, maybe $1 trillion over 14 years. But this raises a really important question. How sustainable is this model of trying to attract private investment into an active conflict zone, especially when you have internal EU divisions.
Like Hungary opposing that big Euro billion EU fund for Ukraine.
Exactly. Hungary's government advisor, Balázs Orbán, accused EU leadership of prioritizing military spending over the EU's own internal needs. And reportedly, efforts to get big private investors like BlackRock involved have stalled because of the sheer uncertainty about Ukraine's future stability and economic viability. It's a huge challenge.
And beyond the battlefield finances, there are some deeply disturbing human rights concerns emerging around Ukraine's conscription efforts.
Yes, this is a very serious development.
The Council of Europe's Commissioner for Human Rights, Michael O'Flaherty, raised alarms about what he called systematic and widespread human rights violations by Ukrainian draft officials.
The allegations include things like torture, deaths occurring during the recruitment process, beatings, and unlawful detentions.
Wow. That really highlights the terrible human cost of this war, not just from enemy action, but from the measures taken to sustain the fight itself. It's a very somber note.
It is, and Ukraine's own Parliamentary Commissioner for Human Rights, Dmitry Lubinets, has echoed some of these concerns, mentioning cases like the mobilization of individuals with disabilities and people being denied legal counsel.
How is the Ukrainian leadership responding?
President Volodymyr Zelensky has generally downplayed the extent of the abuse, suggesting it's more related to widespread draft evasion. But public sentiment towards the recruitment centers is reportedly very negative in Ukraine. There are even accusations, though hard to verify, that some civilians have retaliated by sharing recruitment center locations with Russian forces.
And this has international dimensions, too. Hungary summoned Ukraine's ambassador.
Yes, over the alleged beating death of an ethnic Hungarian man, Joseph Sebastian, by Ukrainian draft officers in the Zakarpattai region of western Ukraine. Hungarian officials called it forced conscription and senseless violence.
Does Ukraine agree with that account?
No, Ukraine disputes it, stating he died of natural causes, specifically a pulmonary embolism. It underscores the deep mistrust and conflicting narratives swirling around this issue.
And adding yet another grave layer, accusations of chemical warfare are now flying. Russia has formally asked the OPCW, the organization, for the prohibition of chemical weapons to investigate claims.
Claims that Ukrainian forces are using toxic munitions and even running a large-scale production program for banned chemical substances. Moscow says it presented documented evidence.
Is Ukraine making similar claims against Russia?
Yes, this is a serious escalation in the information war, with both sides leveling these very grave accusations. Ukraine has filed its own complaint accusing Russia of using banned chemical munitions. And other countries, like Germany and the Netherlands, have also accused Russian forces of using things like choking agents.
So, who do you believe? How could anyone verify this?
That's the immense difficulty. Independent verification by international bodies like the OPCW is crucial, but it's incredibly challenging to achieve definitively in the middle of an active war zone. It adds significantly to the fog of war.
Okay, let's shift focus now to U.S. domestic policy and how it's rippling out globally. We're seeing big legal and political fights, especially around immigration. A federal judge just temporarily blocked a Trump administration order that was trying to end birthright citizenship. That's the principle in the 14th Amendment, right?
Correct. The principle that anyone born on U.S. soil is automatically a U.S. citizen. The judge issued a nationwide block, preventing the order from being implemented, at least for now. This really brings up fundamental questions about the separation of powers. Can a president unilaterally change a long-standing interpretation of the Constitution regarding citizenship through an executive order?
Seems like a major legal battle brewing.
Absolutely. Birthright citizenship has been a cornerstone of American law for over 150 years. Any attempt to alter it faces immense legal hurdles and tests the boundaries between executive power and judicial review.
Okay, let's unpack this immigration situation further. It feels like a real maze right now, politically, legally, and the effects are reaching far beyond U.S. borders. We've got Mohd Khalil, who was freed from ICE detention, now filing a $20 million claim against the Trump administration for wrongful detention. He's alleging it was political retaliation.
And the administration is rejecting those claims. Meanwhile, the U.S. has also widened restrictions on public benefits for undocumented immigrants. They're now ineligible for 13 programs, things like Head Start for children, family planning services, mental health services. This has direct, often severe consequences for vulnerable people.
And Democrats released leaked Justice Department messages about the deportation push.
Yes, sparking controversy and raising questions about transparency and due process and how immigration enforcement is being carried out.
And those ripple effects. Nigeria's foreign minister basically said, "We have enough problems. We can't take deportees from the U.S., especially Venezuelans being potentially rerouted there."
highlighting the strain such policies can put on other nations, even those far removed geographically.
And then this absolutely chaotic scene in California. Federal ICE agents raided a legal cannabis farm, Glass House Farms in Camarillo, Ventura County.
Right, leading to clashes with protesters, detentions, and the discovery of 10 undocumented children at the facility, which prompted child labor investigations.
California's Governor Newsom called the raid inhumane. It really shows how these national directives clash with state laws and communities on the ground.
It illustrates the intense friction points where federal immigration enforcement intersects with state-level regulations, local economies, and vulnerable populations.
Okay, shifting to trade now. President Trump imposed a hefty 35% tariff on Canadian goods, effective August 1st. That could double charges compared to other countries. Major escalation with Canada.
A very significant escalation with one of the U.S.'s largest and closest trading partners. And the European Union is reportedly bracing for similar actions, anticipating further protectionist moves.
We also heard commentary, like from Rachel Maddow, outlining big problems with Trump's tariff approach towards Brazil, questioning the legal basis, the diplomatic fallout.
And indeed, protests erupted in Brazil condemning Trump's proposed 50% tariffs there, showing significant public and likely governmental opposition.
India is retaliating too, notifying the WTO they'll hike tariffs on U.S. aluminum and steel imports in response to U.S. hikes.
Yes, increasing their retaliatory tariffs from 25% to 50%. This affects billions, about $7.6 billion worth, of Indian exports to the U.S. annually.
So, big picture. These unilateral tariffs are really shaking up global trade.
Clearly, they're prompting immediate tit-for-tat responses from key partners and forcing nations worldwide to navigate a much more unpredictable and contentious international economic landscape. It also puts U.S. officials, like Senator Marco Rubio, currently visiting Malaysia and meeting China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi, in a difficult position trying to manage relationships amidst these trade tensions. It's a clear struggle for influence.
And finally, looking inside the U.S. government, there seems to be quite a bit of tension. The White House is taking an aggressive stance against the Federal Reserve Chair, Jerome Powell.
Yes, fueling a lot of speculation about the Fed's independence and future direction. President Trump has been urging a huge 3 percentage point interest rate cut and has even publicly called for Powell's resignation.
That's unusual, attacking the Fed chair so directly.
Highly unusual. And what's striking here is this broader pattern of internal friction between the political administration and traditionally independent institutions like the Fed or parts of the Justice Department. These tensions have real implications for governance, economic stability, and public trust. We even saw a fired Justice Department official warn starkly that we are driving straight into an abyss.
Wow. And the Justice Department is also issuing subpoenas related to transgender youth medicine.
Yes, demanding private patient information from providers, investigating over 20 doctors and clinics. This raises major concerns about patient privacy, medical ethics, and access to health care for a vulnerable group.
And on the security front, those 6 Secret Service agents suspended over the Trump assassination attempt.
Right. That raised serious questions about security protocols and the readiness of the agency responsible for protecting the president. It adds to a picture of internal government strain and scrutiny.
Let's turn now to ongoing humanitarian crises and some intense regional tensions. The situation in Gaza remains absolutely desperate.
Tragically so. Recent reports include Israeli strikes near a clinic, killing children, and another incident where 15 people, including 8 children, were killed while queuing for food supplements in Deir al-Balah in central Gaza. The overall death toll continues to climb amidst what reports describe as ongoing forced displacement plans in the region, with 82 killed recently in related violence.
Has any aid been getting in? Fuel is critical there.
The UN did manage to deliver its first fuel shipment to Gaza in 130 days, which is significant. But they immediately warned that it's far from enough to sustain essential services like hospitals, water purification, and sanitation.
And then there's this proposal from Israel for a humanitarian city in Rafah, southern Gaza.
Yes, a highly controversial proposal for a sealed, military-controlled area intended to house potentially over 2 million displaced Palestinians. Critically, initial reports suggested residents would not be allowed to leave.
Sealed, military-controlled, no leaving. That sounds grim.
UNRWA, the main UN agency for Palestinian refugees, slammed the proposal as inhumane. They likened it to forced displacement or even a concentration camp, expressing grave concerns about human dignity, rights, and freedom of movement.
Are there signs this is actually being built?
Satellite images reportedly show preparations underway, which has intensified alarm among international humanitarian organizations. It raises profound questions about the long-term viability and ethics of such proposals, especially under conditions of forced displacement and severe restrictions.
And the international context around this is also fraught. The UK government labeled direct action for Palestine as terrorism. That must be causing controversy.
Yes, sparking widespread debate about the definition of terrorism versus legitimate protest and freedom of speech, particularly concerning advocacy for Palestinian rights.
And a UN expert, Francesca Albanese, was sanctioned by the U.S. for criticizing Israel's actions.
That's correct. She investigates human rights in the Palestinian territories. She asserts, however, that the sanctions won't deter her from her work. It highlights the intense diplomatic pressures surrounding the conflict.
Meanwhile, elsewhere, the horrors in Sudan continue. The International Criminal Court, the ICC, says it's found evidence suggesting war crimes are likely being committed in Darfur.
Yes, a senior ICC prosecutor concluded there are reasonable grounds to believe that war crimes and crimes against humanity are occurring, often targeting specific ethnic groups. This underscores the urgent need for accountability and international action to address these horrific violations as the conflict displaces millions and causes immense suffering.
And a difficult reminder that dealing with the past is often fraught. Peru has introduced a new amnesty law related to past human rights abuses.
Yes, and it's prompted international appeals and considerable fury. The concern is that this law might grant amnesty to perpetrators of serious human rights violations committed during Peru's internal conflict decades ago.
Undermining justice for potentially thousands of victims.
That's the fear. It highlights the ongoing struggle for justice and accountability long after conflicts officially end.
Okay, let's look at how global alliances and influence might be shifting. There's an interesting angle on Russia-Malaysia relations using education.
Right. Teo Seng Lee, who is the honorary consul of the Russian Federation in Malaysia, described education as a powerful form of soft diplomacy. He pointed out that thousands of Malaysians have graduated from Russian universities, mostly in fields like medicine and engineering.
And the idea is they bring back positive feelings about Russia.
Exactly. They bring back skills, but also potentially positive perceptions, which can foster stronger ties and open doors for collaboration in other areas, like energy or the economy. It's a subtle but potentially effective way nations build influence.
Now, in Africa, it seems like there's a real scramble for influence, particularly regarding military partnerships. President Trump hosted several African leaders recently.
Yes, leaders from Liberia, Senegal, Gabon, Mauritania, and Guinea-Bissau were at the White House. Trump was advocating for them to increase their defense spending and buy American-made military equipment. He apparently cited recent U.S. strikes in Iran as proof of the superiority of American weaponry.
How did that go down? Not everyone was impressed, I gather.
No. Liberian civil rights activist Emmanuel Gankoi heavily criticized Trump's outreach. He called it repackaged colonial and imperialist policies, arguing it was aimed at exploiting resources and worsening conflicts, not helping Africa. Gankoi called instead for focusing on science and technology to reduce poverty. He also found Trump's reported question to the Liberian president about learning English rather ignorant, given Liberia's history and official language.
So is the U.S. rethinking its military presence in Africa? There was mention of AFRICOM potentially restructuring.
There are signs of that, yes. Articles suggest a potential retreat or restructuring of U.S. Africa Command, AFRICOM. Speeches have signaled a reassessment, possibly driven by America First policies and budget cuts. This raises a really important question about strategic competition for influence on the continent. Where traditional Western military dominance might be receding, others are stepping in.
Like Russia.
Exactly. In this potential void, Russia has expanded its influence, offering security partnerships that are sometimes perceived by African leaders as more respectful of sovereignty and less conditional than Western offers. It highlights a wider dynamic, a multipolar world where African nations are increasingly asserting their own agency and choosing partners based on their own priorities.
And speaking of a multipolar world, the recent BRICS summit seems really significant. That's Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, plus their new members. They met in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil.
Yes, that summit signaled a pretty significant shift in the global geopolitical landscape. It's seen less as a sign of crisis and more as symbolizing a broader, ongoing transition away from a purely Western-dominated order.
So BRICS is becoming a more solid bloc, despite the differences between the members.
It appears to be consolidating its role as a key player in this increasingly multipolar world. It's managing to stick together and even expand despite internal diversity and external pressures, including from the U.S. under Trump. The evolution of BRICS really signals this gradual but persistent move towards a more fragmented, less Western-centric global order. It requires new diplomatic approaches from everyone.
And quickly, in Japan, there's some political uncertainty around their upper house election. The ruling coalition might lose its majority.
Yes, there's uncertainty. Parties like Komeito and the Japanese Communist Party are apparently seeing their traditional support bases age, so they're trying new things, like using social media more to reach younger voters.
And while dealing with that domestic political landscape, Japan is also involved in regional security. There was a joint air drill with South Korea and the U.S.
That's right. It involved a U.S. B-52 strategic bomber and fighter jets from all three countries. Defense chiefs met in Seoul, South Korea, afterwards, emphasizing their trilateral cooperation.
So it shows how domestic politics and international security concerns are really intertwined for a country like Japan.
Absolutely. Navigating internal political shifts while actively participating in regional security exercises highlights that interconnectedness.
Okay, let's shift our focus now to the often unpredictable world of global economies and market dynamics.
Yeah.
We're seeing some surprising twists that have real impacts.
Definitely some unexpected data points coming out.
Starting in the UK, the economy actually shrank unexpectedly in May by 0.1%. That's the second month in a row of contraction.
Yes, that was a disappointment for many observers. The Shadow Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, highlighted concerns about recent tax changes and the potential impact of global tariffs contributing to this slowdown.
Interestingly, the government did put plans to cut the tax-free allowance on cash individual savings accounts on hold after a backlash. So some relief for savers there.
True. But the contraction itself raises a bigger question. In this era of global uncertainty, trade tensions, and inflation, how resilient are individual economies like the UK's? And what tools do governments really have left to stimulate growth effectively?
It suggests things might be more fragile than people thought.
It certainly points towards a more challenging economic environment, potentially impacting consumer confidence and business investment.
But then, on the flip side, look at the Russian ruble. It hit a 2-year high against the U.S. dollar recently, trading below 75 rubles to the dollar. And it gained significantly against the euro, too.
Yes, that's been quite a surprising resurgence. What's fascinating is that its strength seems driven by pretty fundamental macroeconomic factors, which kind of challenges the narrative of Russia being completely isolated economically.
So what's driving it? It can't just be oil prices.
It seems to be a combination of things. Strong trade inflows, likely from energy exports to new markets, government policies forcing exporters to convert foreign currency earnings back into rubles. Also, critically low imports because of sanctions, and maybe weaker consumer demand inside Russia.
And maybe the U.S. dollar being weaker globally helps too.
That likely contributes as well. Overall, it suggests Russia has adapted, to a significant degree, to the sanctions regime, perhaps by finding new trade partners and boosting domestic production where possible. It forces a reevaluation of how effective sanctions are in the longer term.
Now let's talk about Argentina, an absolutely remarkable turnaround, seemingly. Their economy grew 7.7% year-on-year in April 2025, fastest pace since 2022.
A huge jump, yes. And this follows President Javier Milei's really controversial radical austerity measures, his so-called chainsaw strategy.
Right, the massive public spending cuts, deregulation, privatization. So chainsaw might be incredibly painful, but is it actually working?
Well, the top-line numbers look impressive. That 7.7% growth, reports of poverty falling to around 31.7%, monthly inflation slowing dramatically to 1.5% in May. But here's where it gets really interesting and debatable. Can this model work long-term? And is it a blueprint or just unique to Argentina's very specific chronic problems?
Because the initial impact was brutal for ordinary people, right?
Right.
Cuts to subsidies, social programs.
Exactly. The policies initially hit the poor and middle classes incredibly hard. So while you have these positive indicators now, and even JP Morgan projecting Argentina as one of Latin America's fastest growers, the long-term sustainability is the big question. Can this extreme shock therapy deliver equitable growth without causing massive social unrest or eventually backsliding? The jury is still very much out.
And finally, on the economic front, this global scramble for rare earth elements Seems like everyone wants their own supply chain now.
It's become a major point of strategic competition.
We saw MP Materials, a U.S. company, securing a big deal with the U.S. Department of Defense for rare earth minerals. The goal is reducing China's dominance, right?
Precisely. Boosting the domestic U.S. supply chain for these critical materials. And concurrently, India just unveiled a big subsidy scheme, about $156 million, to encourage its own domestic production of rare earth magnets. India wants a complete domestic supply chain, from mining the ores to producing the finished high-tech magnets used in electronics and green energy.
And this is happening just after China restricted exports of some rare earth tech.
Yes, China, which is by far the dominant global supplier, implemented new export restrictions. So India sees this as a strategic opportunity to reduce its dependency on Chinese imports and boost its own self-reliance.
So connecting the dots, this global competition for rare earths, it's basically about national security and economic independence in the 21st century.
Absolutely. These elements are vital for everything from smartphones and EV batteries to wind turbines and sophisticated defense systems. Control over these materials translates directly into geopolitical leverage and economic resilience in our tech-driven world.
Okay, looking now at how businesses are adjusting and where investment is flowing. It feels like even really established institutions are facing tough budget choices. The National Trust in the UK, the big heritage and conservation charity, is planning to cut at least 550 jobs. That's like 6% of their staff.
Yes, they're citing a 10 million increase in costs stemming from UK government budget changes and recent tax hikes. They're explicitly blaming these external financial pressures.
So even large charities aren't immune to these economic headwinds.
Not at all. Rising inflation, energy costs, shifts in government policy, they're forcing even long-established organizations to make significant, often painful operational adjustments. Similarly, we see Germany's national railroad operator Deutsche Bahn wanting to delay its modernization plans for key routes by another year. They cited unspecified concerns, but it likely relates to rising costs, supply chain issues, or funding constraints.
It shows how widespread these pressures are. Now for a bit of market whiplash. Jane Birkin's original Hermes Birkin bag sold for £7.4 million. It's like $9.5 million US at a Sotheby's auction.
An absolutely staggering price, highlighting the enduring, almost unbelievable appeal and investment value of certain ultra-luxury goods.
And then, in a completely different universe of value, a record label is digitally reissuing a classic 1987 dancehall single, an album by Carl Meeks, Way Dem Fa, making it available digitally for the first time.
Yes, VP Records reissue division 17 North Parade is doing that, preserving foundational reggae and dancehall music.
It's such a fascinating contrast, isn't it? You've got this symbol of extreme, exclusive luxury fetching millions, and at the same time, this vital effort to preserve and make accessible important cultural heritage through digital reissues.
Exactly. One represents a market for tangible, exclusive wealth and status. The other, a market focused on intangible, shared cultural value and history. Both show different facets of what people value and invest in.
Okay, let's look at where some big bets are being placed on the future. Silicon Valley investors are putting serious money into a company called Varda Space. Their plan is making drugs in space.
Basically, yes. They focus on producing critical pharmaceutical components like pure drug crystals in the microgravity environment of space, which would then be used to make finished drugs back on Earth. A truly novel manufacturing approach.
Wow. And then even Warren Buffett, the famously cautious investor, is apparently indirectly betting on 2 quantum computing stocks.
Reflecting a growing interest, even among traditional investors, in these potentially transformative, though still very early-stage technologies. Quantum computing could revolutionize fields like medicine, material science, and AI.
And if that wasn't futuristic enough, Bitcoin just smashed through $112,000. A new all-time high.
Signaling a massive surge in the cryptocurrency market, likely driven by a mix of factors including institutional adoption, ETF flows, and perhaps renewed retail interest.
So, billionaires betting on quantum physics, drugs being made literally off-planet, and crypto soaring. The future is definitely getting weird and maybe expensive.
It certainly highlights a flow of significant capital into frontier technologies and highly speculative assets. There's a clear hunger for groundbreaking innovation and perhaps a willingness to take on substantial risk for potentially huge returns.
And of course, we can't talk markets without mentioning the big retail event. Amazon Prime Day 2025 is ongoing. Day 3. Still plenty of deals, apparently.
Yes, it remains a major fixture in the e-commerce calendar, driving significant sales volumes globally. It always offers valuable insights into current consumer behavior, what people are buying, how price-sensitive they are, and underscores the continued dominance of online shopping, even amidst economic uncertainty. It's a useful barometer.
All right, let's shift now to the impacts felt closer to home, environmental, societal, local impacts. How these bigger trends ripple through communities.
Yeah, looking at climate first.
The UK is sweltering through its third heat wave of 2025 already. This follows their warmest and sunniest spring on record and England's warmest June ever.
These extreme heat events are becoming distressingly common.
And it's leading to practical consequences. The first hosepipe ban of the year is now in effect in Yorkshire in northern England. They expect it to last until winter because water levels are so low.
Water conservation becoming a necessity even in historically wetter climates like the UK's.
But people are frustrated because apparently even with the ban, they're seeing water leaking from pipes down the streets.
And that highlights a crucial issue. As these extreme weather events driven by climate change become more frequent, how do we balance the immediate need for conservation with the vital, long-term need for infrastructure improvements? Seeing water mains leak in Yorkshire while residents can't use hoses underscores that investing in resilient infrastructure to prevent water loss is just as critical as asking individuals to conserve. We need both.
And then the truly heartbreaking side of climate impacts. The human cost of disasters and the importance of response. Central Texas in the U.S. saw horrific flash floods after the Guadalupe River swelled.
Devastating scenes. At least 120 people confirmed dead, and over 170 still missing as of the latest reports. Survivors described terrifying experiences.
And compounding the tragedy, reports suggest the FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency deployment, was delayed because of budget issues at the Department of Homeland Security.
That's what's being reported, yes. Delays that potentially affected critical search and rescue efforts in those crucial early hours and days. Furthermore, officials in Kerr County, Texas, reportedly took 90 minutes to issue emergency alerts after the initial request, highlighting potential communication breakdowns during a rapidly unfolding disaster.
Just awful. And the recovery is just beginning for those who survived. Farmers, ranchers dealing with ruined crops, lost livestock.
Immense personal and economic losses. You see community efforts stepping up, like that Door County Candle Company raising funds, which is wonderful, but it also underscores the gaps and challenges in the official disaster response system when facing events of this scale.
Okay, turning to public health now. A really dire warning came out from the UN AIDS Agency.
Yes, a very sobering report.
It warns that millions could die by 2029 if U.S. funding for global HIV programs isn't replaced. They called the potential cuts a systemic shock to global efforts against the epidemic.
This raises a really important question about the geopolitical implications when critical humanitarian aid, like funding for HIV treatment and prevention, becomes entangled in or a casualty of national policy shifts or budget battles. The report highlights the urgent need for alternative, sustainable funding sources to keep these life-saving programs running worldwide. A major drop in U.S. funding could reverse decades of progress,
Creating a massive global health crisis, particularly in developing nations.
exactly, impacting millions of lives directly.
And healthcare challenges are evolving everywhere, it seems. In South Korea, the country with the world's lowest birth rate, they're seeing a boom in fertility clinics.
It's a fascinating paradox, isn't it? It highlights profound societal shifts and challenges around family planning. The low birth rate is driven by complex factors: high cost of living, intense work culture, changing social norms, and the boom in clinics reflects a societal response, perhaps even desperation, to counteract that trend.
It points to huge demographic challenges ahead for them.
Absolutely. And then, contrasting that, a story from the UK raises questions about healthcare oversight. A surgeon who was dropped by a private practice, Nuffield Health, due to complications, apparently continues to work for the public NHS Foundation Trust in Sussex.
Raising serious questions about accountability and information sharing between private and public healthcare systems.
Precisely. It underscores the vital need for robust oversight mechanisms everywhere to ensure patient safety and maintain consistent standards of care, regardless of where that care is delivered.
And finally, on a more philosophical, societal note, Irvine Welsh, the author of Trainspotting, had some pretty sharp words for modern culture.
He didn't mince words, did he?
No, he argued people have become dumbed-down machines, prioritizing convenience and consumerism over critical thinking and creativity. Ouch.
It's a provocative social commentary, and if you connect it to the bigger picture, it encourages us to think critically about the potential unintended consequences of our fast-paced, information-saturated, convenience-driven world. Welsh raises that uncomfortable question. Are we, collectively, losing some capacity for deeper thought, genuine creativity, and authentic human experience in our relentless pursuit of ease and consumption? Something to chew on.
All right, let's wrap up with a quick spin through the world of sports where we're seeing some interesting milestones. History is apparently about to be made in women's football. Arsenal, the big London club, is set to sign Liverpool's Olivia Smith, a 20-year-old Canadian forward, for £1 million.
Making her the world's first female footballer whose transfer fee surpasses that £1 million barrier.
That feels significant. Beyond just the game itself, that level of investment in a women's player, it really signals a shift, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It marks a pivotal moment, reflecting substantially increased financial investment, valuation, and recognition for women's football globally. A sign the sport is growing rapidly in commercial terms, as well as popularity.
We also saw some great tennis at the Wimbledon women's semifinals in London. Iga Swiatek looked dominant, and Amanda Anisimova reached her first Grand Slam final.
Yes, Anisimova advanced with a strong win over Arina Sabalenka. Always exciting to see players break through at that level.
And in basketball, the much-hyped rookie Cooper Flagg made his pro debut for the Dallas Mavericks at the NBA Summer League, showing his all-business approach, apparently.
The next generation making their mark highlights the constant cycle of talent development in major sports leagues.
And somehow, that brings us to the end of another incredibly dense and, I think, captivating deep dive. We've covered so much ground, from the origins of consciousness in those resilient Chernobyl dogs, to the shifting sands of global power, trade wars, AI taking over, and the very real impacts of climate change.
It's been quite a journey. And what really stands out, I think, is just how interconnected everything truly is. Seemingly local issues, a drought in Yorkshire, England, a political shift in Argentina, a tech company layoff often have these profound global ramifications. And conversely, huge international policies, geopolitical tensions, global economic trends, they profoundly affect individual lives and communities everywhere, from job prospects to safety nets to the environment we live in.
Yeah, it really reinforces that understanding the bigger picture, connecting these seemingly disparate dots, is more crucial than ever.
Absolutely. For navigating our increasingly complex world.
So, as we all try to navigate this ever-changing global landscape, here's a final thought to leave you with. What role do you see for individual citizens? How can we demand both accountability and real foresight from our leaders, whether it's on climate action, the ethics of new technology, or navigating complex diplomatic relations? We hope you feel more informed after this dive, and maybe even a little more curious about the world around you. Keep exploring, keep questioning. Thank you for joining us on The Deep Dive, and we'll catch you next time.